In The Sopranos, New Jersey Mafia boss Tony Soprano is surrounded by a colourful collection of characters, such as the germaphobe Paulie Walnuts, the criminal mastermind Benny Fazio, and a literal animal, I can't even say his name. Speaking of colourful, the deeply committed comedian and undercover CIA agent Vito Spatafore is revealed in Season 5 to be playing for the Pink Team, when he is discovered by his arch-nemesis Finn DiTrolio playing hide the baguette with a security guard. In Season 6, Vito is spotted at a gay bar and goes on the run, leaving Jersey and ending up in New Hampshire, where he strikes up a whirlwind romance with Jim, also known as Johnny Cakes. But after missing Jersey life, Vito returns and tries to buy his way back into the mob, but he's taken out by Phil Leotardo's crew, who kill him and shove a 95-pound pool cue up his ass. That's why you gotta live for today. Today I wanted to talk a little about Vito and his New Hampshire adventure, and how it is something of a fairy tale, intentionally so, it seems. Before we get into it, be sure to follow the channel, subscribe, save it, treat yourself. Some people say I'm running out of ideas, but I'm a young channel, and now, without the copyright strikes, I'm a healthy channel with longevity. Feel free to also hit the notification button, become a patron or channel member. They're all sources of pleasure. I've always found Vito one of the most interesting characters to talk about from The Sopranos, one who initially you don't notice but who definitely makes his mark in Season 3. He's a come-from-behind kind of guy, literally, as both murders he commits are done from behind. We've done a few videos on him, like how Phil discovered his location, what he would have done to Finn if he turned up to the game, and who exactly was at fault for his death. The character yields sympathy from audiences. You do feel bad for the guy. It's sad when colleagues don't get your jokes, but in typical Sopranos fashion to remind us that he is scum, the show then has him whack a beautiful innocent creature before he goes. And there's only so much sympathy you can give to a guy who is stupid enough to be going down on a guy where he works and prancing around up in the club, but you know the libido makes him emotional. It's cause he's got an empty fucking ass. His storyline also has split audiences. Many Sopranos fans love it, and the subplot gives us some classic scenes and lines, but others detest the storyline for various reasons, the main one often being is that it goes on for too long. Other characters have their subplots wrapped up in a single episode. Ralph and his son, whatever happened there, Eugene hanging around, Hesh and the rent, Paulie and Remember When. But Vito's lasts a good 3 or 4 episodes, and some fans wanted to turn that off, wanted to go back to the Jersey storylines, but they gotta wait for that, because slap bang in the middle of the biggest gangster show on the planet, we get a bizarre cautionary tale about the woes of blood pressure medication that breaks many of its own rules, like for example, Vito's voiceover while he's working being the only time we hear characters' inner monologue in the show. It also seems to kill the momentum of Season 6A. In fact, there is actually a theory that contracts for Season 6B were done during the production of 6A, when initially only 13 episodes were planned, and then because of said contracts, the season's length was doubled. You do feel a momentum to the first 6 episodes or so, every episode having its own self-contained story which peels away at the layers of its titular character. Tony deciding to change his ways but then descending into debauchery. But then everything is brought to a halt to accommodate Vito's storyline, where he becomes the main character and ambles around town. Could it be that this was supposed to be a single episode plot which got stretched out because the writers had to fill up runtime? I've mentioned elsewhere that the Bobby Bacala actor, Steve Sturipa, was unhappy because a Bobby-centric storyline got pushed out to make way for Vito's storyline. But Season 6B has a lot dedicated to Bobby, suggesting they moved it all there. It seems a war with New York was also teased in 6A, but they put it off until 6B, perhaps because that is the culmination of the Mafia storyline, the war. I don't know if it's true, but it's food for thought. But a key complaint about the Vito storyline is that it's not realistic, at least not for the high bar of The Sopranos. I mean, Vito's been in the closet presumably for 20 years, not a peep, and as coincidence would have it, the town that he arrives at just happens to have gay couples all over, like the fireman at the bar or the couple at the cafe. The guy in the antique store too. This all sounds very gay. He has just so happened to fallen into a quaint Norman Rockwell village, and practically the first person he meets the day after he arrives ends up being gay also. And not just that, but a Harley-riding, handlebar moustache volunteer fireman hunk who's also a great cook. It's too idyllic. This masculine dream guy who saves children from burning buildings, being the first guy Vito meets, and on top of that, he's also batting for the other side. To make it even harder to believe, the show has this guy fall for a parade float who waddles around like he's auditioning to play the Penguin. Jim finding him Rubenesque and wanting to impact his bottom. You don't need to check the angle of the sun to feel the writing is a little off here. Doesn't Jim know you grab onto Vito Spatafore, your fucking hands will disappear? When Vito comes out to the gay social club, the bears have to hide their cheeks. They hit it off and ride their bikes together around the leaf-covered scenic town, making out during a picnic in an open field under the cool air, and it felt like something out of a Hallmark movie. And I saw those movies, I thought they were bullshit. The storyline is corny and cheesy, lacking the Sopranos' grit and natural feel. Of course, an easy counter to this is that it's a TV program, a movie. But what if that was the point? That maybe the showrunners were trying to create a world that wasn't supposed to feel real, but was something of a fantasy for Vito. Not a literal one per se, but there is an unreal quality to it, a fairy tale-like feel, like Vito is Alice in Wonderland. That warm and convivial cafe host Jim, he even exists. When Vito is fleeing Jersey in the storm and his car breaks down, everything is dark, almost black and white. And when he wakes up in New Hampshire, everything is colourful and bright, which could be compared to Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, surviving the hurricane in black and white and stumbling upon Rusty Maleo land in glorious Technicolor. The colour of the new town is directly contrasted when showing Vito walk down a sunny road, and then we cleverly cut to Christopher arriving at Satrial's on a dirty looking Jersey street with murky weather. Vito's also wearing a red poncho that makes him look like a gluttonous Little Red Riding Hood. This is surely not a coincidence, as when Vito finds the cottage, the grandmotherly woman that he seeks refuge with while he's huffing and puffing is called Betty Wolf. But the irony is that in this inverted story, he is the wolf. He is the predator hiding his true identity. In one scene, Jimbo is reading a book called Devil in the White City, and that's what Vito is, a devil in this white, small, simple town, thieving people's phones, wreaking havoc in Jim's life, sleeping on the job. Or maybe the big bad wolf in this story is supposed to be Phil Leotardo back home, prowling New Jersey with a chalked pool cue, on the lookout for his prey. And let's not forget the double meaning of the phrase fairy tale, given Vito has a propensity for catching, not pitching. Get it? Fairy tale? Only in the previous episode we had a reference to another classic fairy tale when Paulie says his coach turned into a pumpkin, and Phil replies, even Cinderella didn't cry. But of course, even if you disregard the fairy tale connections, there is a point in making this storyline over the top. The entire point of it is that it is Vito's ultimate fantasy. He's handed a dream on a silver platter. It's a town that's made for him, where he can have practically anything he wants. He can be himself and cream after mad ripe men without facing prejudice. It's an opportunity for Vito to live free, to be pursued by leather-wearing daddies. It's a place where he can openly discuss his sexuality in the diner, when before he could never admit the existence of this thing. It needs to be over the top, to the point of fantasy, to sell the point that these guys can't stay away from the life. They can't even handle a quarter of a day's manual labour. That's how pathetic these mobsters are. Referencing the episode title, Live Free or Die, Vito would literally rather die than live a normal free life. He runs from all of this because it doesn't give him the buzz he wants. Here guys go to bed on time. They have fun, but they are also responsible and work for a living. That's not something the Sopranos guys are capable of, having tasted the life. As Henry Hill says in Goodfellas, for us to live any other way was nuts. To us, Those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If we wanted something, we just took it. For Vito to find his place in this wonderland, he'd have to be content with living like a schnook. But as Christopher says, it's like just the regularness of life is too hard for me. And Vito finding paradise, but still not being happy, links to the wider questions the show tackles regarding nihilism and contentment. Of course, there are other interesting elements to this storyline. For example, the ideas of freedom, politics and liberty are all over the episode Live Free or Die. Angie Bompensero is now a strong, independent woman with a Corvette who does business with Benny and Patsy. Meadow complains that George Bush was using 9/11 to erode our constitutional protections. And of course, there's the varied political opinions and reactions from the crew to Vito when their opinion of him as a heterosexual fucking plummets. From Patsy not caring, to Paulie and Carlo's disgust, to Tony's performative outrage that marks an indifference. This is taking place at a time where Tony decided that from now on, every day is a gift, where he wants to free himself from nuisances, like the rattling AC unit in the opening scene of the episode. Like Vito, he wants peace and freedom. But the dysentery in the ranks caused by Vito's outing is an example of exactly the kind of real-world issue that flies in the face of his new philosophy. As when he complains to Dr. Milfy, you can talk about every day being a gift and stopping to smell the roses, but regular life has got a way of picking away at it. Tony thinks he can hold on to the idea that he will cherish each day, but it's a pipe dream. The most dominant element in the show is that banality of the regularness of life. I mean, Tony literally got a skin rash the last time he tried to live a normal life. For guys like Vito and Tony, no matter how much they will give lip service to living a normal life, they cannot commit to that happiness and instead choose the selfish path, running back to the mob life like Ginny Sack running to her chocolate stash. Vito wasting his chance here is a reflection of Tony wasting his second chance after he was shot. Ultimately, there's a lot you can read into from the Vito storyline, but perhaps the way it was handled turned audiences off. For example, I rewatched the scenes for this video and a lot of it does come off as awkward. The Vito actor's acting isn't great. He can't quite carry the storyline and he has stilted line delivery, like when he says, "Back where I come from, the night just started." He sounded like a petulant child. He should have said it like, "Back where I come from, the night just started." He just couldn't fucking sell it. The Johnny Cakes actor was okay, but there isn't much chemistry between the two. Seeing them have a picnic on the grass was such a mismatch. You've got this big hunk and next to him an awkward oaf struggling not to sink into the ground. When Vito slaps his hand down on Jim, I thought the cafe would cave in. And Ganascoli looks straight up uncomfortable during the more intimate scenes, like when Vito takes this in the back. So what do you make of Vito's New Hampshire storyline and the fantastical fairy tale elements on this subplot? Let me know in the comments section below, subscribe to the channel and thanks for watching.